Okay, this is tutorial 3, when we'll be looking at developing a concept design, classification and exporting an elemental cost plan. So just to recap on tutorial 2, we produced our spatial BIM here. We then exported from that an area schedule, giving us gross internal floor areas. We also exported cost model, giving us the total cost of the building. Okay, for this tutorial we're going to use a slightly simplified model so that we can understand better what's going on. So we have our spatial BIM, and in order to get the best out of the functionality of Quarter One, we need to apply roofs to the spatial model. So you'll see here that I've simply modelled a flat roof and saved it as a component as before. Again, as before, we're going to right mouse click and convert that to a room, which as you can see is unidentified. So we're going to rename that as a roof. So that's a flat roof. Save that. As you can see, it's now identified as a flat roof. Just to speed things up, I've actually done all of those roof areas in this particular model. Let's turn off the text so we can see what's going on. One of Quarter One's features is it will now automatically generate walls, internal and external, roof slabs and floor slabs for us. So to do that, we go into Quarter One, identify floors, walls and roofs, click on that. As you can see, the floors, walls and roofs are automatically generated for us. Where we've got curves in the scheme, as here, we can go into Quarter One and smooth the edges. So as you can see, it tidies up the model. Another additional piece of functionality is that we can now generate floor plans from the model. So go into Q1, review floor plans. So at this point we could go into layout, for example, and produce floor plans of the building. Okay, so now we might want to start articulating and classifying elements of the building. This is easiest done by working potentially from the ground up. So let's hide those spaces. Now I find it easier to work element by element. So for example, if we switch off the external walls, we can start work on the internal walls, or vice versa if you prefer. As we proceed with modelling, we're going to simply classify elements of the building. So for example, if we click on the internal walls, we want to classify those as internal walls. As before, we need to make them a component, and then go into Q1, right mouse click, rename, stroke classify. Quarter One now asks us for the BCIS data spreadsheet. This is the third and final spreadsheet we need to understand. This will be instantly recognizable to the QSs and estimators out there. So these are the elements of a building, and cost rates are applied to those elements. So back to the model as before, right mouse click, rename, stroke classify. So we select the BCIS data spreadsheet from where we filed it, And now we can simply classify that element of the building. This sounds more complicated than it actually is, but as you can see here, we'll select superstructure because that's where internal walls sit. So we go to internal walls and partitions, and that's now classified, as you can see, an outliner. Now perhaps we want to start adding doors and articulation to the spaces. So for example, I've got a door here that I've cut and pasted out of another project. Again, saved as a component. And we can classify this door. So again, this is superstructure, internal doors. So that's that door now classified. Once we have a door classified, we can of course use that door over and over again. However, the important thing to remember is that every time you have an instance of a component, it needs to be unique. If it's not unique, Quarter-1 won't calculate the quantities correctly. So right mouse click, make unique. So we've decided we want to put our door using basic SketchUp skills. And using basic SketchUp skills, we're going to insert that into the wall. So we need to identify the wall, draw a structural opening around the door, perhaps hide the door so we can see what we're doing, push that structural opening through, unhide the door, push the door into its opening. Just moving to external walls for a moment. We've decided that we want this enclosure here to be glazed, so we need to edit the wall. Again, it's a standard SketchUp skills. So we're removing the thickness of this wall. Selecting all connected, and I'm going to make that a component. I'm going to give that a transparency so I know it's a window or glazing. Right mouse click, rename classify. Again, glazing superstructure, and this I'm going to classify as curtain walling. As you'll see again, it appears an outliner. Adding windows is the same process, again using standard SketchUp tools and skills. If we want to add a window, for example, make the structural opening. I want that to be glazed. Using simple geometry again. We've got a component. Again, we're going to classify that. Right mouse click. Instead of curtain walling this time, it's going to be external windows. It appears in outliner, and as before I'm going to give that transparency. Perhaps move it back into the reveal. So you can see, using standard SketchUp skills, we can design, model and classify as we go. So ultimately we will have completed the concept design. And from that we can now produce an elemental cost plan. So we're going to plug into Q1, class cost details. It doesn't always happen, but this time Q1's asking us to pick up a standard data file. So we're going to pick that up. It's now asking us to pick up the BCIS cost data file, which we do. And as you can see, we now have an elemental cost plan generated from the model. Now this is a dynamic spreadsheet, so we can make adjustments to various elements of the building or parts of the cost plan. Here's the total cost of the building. However, we can adjust things, for example, main contractors' overhead and profits perhaps, prelims, maybe the project contingency. As you can see, whilst I'm doing this, the overall project cost is updated, so this is quite a powerful tool. So that's the elemental cost planning. In terms of the concept design, we can continue to work on this, or we can, for example, export it and view it in Google Earth. Simply by going to export the 3D model, choosing the KMZ file, and exporting. If we go into Google Earth, go to import, find where we have the file, pick up the KMZ, and then we can view our project in context. In terms of the concept design, this is as far as we would go, as we would now export this and pull it into Revit. So in tutorial 4, we will look at importing into Revit and ArchiCAD using IFC and exporting a COBie Drop 1 file from Q1.